Okay. Hi everybody, thank you for joining today. So we're going to do a live demo, and just throughout the presentation, we'd appreciate it if you keep your microphones off. However, if you do have a question as we go, if you could raise your hand, I will then be able to unmute you and we can ask the question. Can I also ask that you keep your questions relevant and avoid mentioning other organisations, and also be aware that any questions that you submit via the chat or audio will be recorded. And we're also recording this session live, and it will be pushed onto our YouTube channel and website afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to do a live demonstration of the EES portal. Before we do
sorry,
that,
I think I've got a quick question from
okay, sorry.
Should be able to.
The chat is off, so you can't put a question via that route at the moment, hence my hand.
Okay, if you put, so we've got a Q&A set up.
Is that on the top bar?
Yeah.
Okay, I think I've found that. Got it. Right, that's worth knowing. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. That is useful. Okay, so before we go into the actual demo itself, I mean, as you said, the EES is relatively straightforward once you get to it. We will go through a few slides just setting the scene, describing what's changed for MHHS, etc. Obviously, please feel free to put questions in the chat as we go through, and once we get to the end of the slides, we'll have a type of questions then. We'll also have questions for after the demonstration itself as well. So what's changing for MHHS? So the Electricity Enquiry Service, EES, has been changed, will be changed for MHHS to add new and amended or removed data items that have been added through the MHHS design. EES is moving to an event-driven architecture with near real-time updates to the data, and the system also needs to account for forward and reverse migration between both legacy and MHHS arrangements. So what do we mean by near real-time updates? So in the new arrangements, EES will interface directly with what's known as the Data Integration Platform, the DIP, which will replace the current daily interface it receives from ERDS, otherwise known as MPAS. This will allow near real-time updates of most data items and provide a simplified model, which will allow for future innovation. So EES will need to subscribe to the appropriate DIP messages, which confirm the data items have been updated. On receipt of a DIP message, EES will be updated within 2 hours of receipt of that message, and hopefully quicker than that in most instances. Items will also be sourced from CSS. So these are the registration messages. So anything that's registration driven will be directly sourced from EES, from CSS now, the central switching service, rather than from MPAS. So the new data items and changes to data items, so a number of new data items are being introduced for MHHS. This is the domestic premise indicator, which is an existing data item, which will now be shown within EES. The GEOS tariff ID, which replaces the line loss factor. And the market segment indicator, which shows which market segment an MPAN is in. Annual consumption is now being shown within EES, so this is provided direct from the Elexon Central Services, and that comes alongside a quality indicator which shows what percentage of that value is being made up from estimated and actual data. The assigned MDR, the media data reader, MPID, DIP ID, and effective from date. The data service, which replaces data collectors, being added. Meter manufacturer, and also we're adding a customer direct contract indicator. So if there's a direct contract with the data service or the metering service, that will be flagged within EES. The DIP IDs for supplier metering service and the DNO will also be added alongside an MHHS indicator and effective from date, which indicates when an MPAN has migrated into MHHS. Note that these new items don't include the MHHS enabling data items that were introduced through R32 and R66 in June 23, And also note that the meter operator, as currently shown within EES, will be rebadged as the metering service. To acknowledge the metering service also includes the UMSO. So data items that are not going to be shown for MHHS migrated MPANs are the MPAN designation. That will now be replaced by the domestic premise indicator, the DPI. The line loss factor class, as I said, he will be replaced by GEOS tariff ID. Measurement class isn't required anymore and is sort of replaced by the market segment indicator. The meter time switch class, the MCC, and is no longer required in the MHHS design, so that won't be shown alongside the related MTC indicator because, as I said, there's no MTC. Data aggregators aren't a thing within the MHHS world, so that agent has been removed from the system. Data collector has been replaced by the data service, and the SMETS version on the metering is no longer required, but you can tell that by the meter type. So the SMETS version will no longer be shown in EES either. So I'm just going to go through some of the more detail around some of this. So for migration, when a MPAN migrates, the updated data items and screen layout will be provided for MPANs that have migrated. MPANs that haven't migrated will continue to show the legacy data items and the screen layout as per the legacy environment until such time as they are migrated. As I've said, a new data item for MHHS indicator will indicate whether an MPAN has been migrated to MHHS, is still within legacy arrangements, or has been reverse migrated. And MPANs that have been reverse migrated will continue to show a static annual consumption effective from date and quality indicator. This annual consumption is the one that's last populated while this MPAN was in MHHS environment, and won't be changed as it doesn't receive any updates in legacy, but once it moves back into MHHS, it will then be updated again. So the migration indicator. So a migration indicator effective from date will be displayed in both EES Portal and the API, which will show you if an MPAN has been migrated, not about migrated, reverse migrated, as we said. So as per the migration design, an MPAN will be classed as migrated after receiving at least one notification of an MHHS agent appointment. So that is either the meter operator agent or the data service. An MPAN will be classed as reverse migrated after receipt of the reverse migration notification, which is the pub 003. In addition to the indicator, the EES portal will hold a new icon indicating the migration status. So that will be available with the other icons as shown in the picture. Alongside the MHHS indicator, there's a number of new icons that are also being added for MHHS MPANs. For all MPANs that are in the system, not just MHHS ones, some new icons will be added. Again, the reverse migration and the migrate indicator. These pictures are slightly out of date on this slide, so please ignore the picture and that the one on the other slide is correct. The DPI indicator, true or false, will also be included now for all MPANs after it's populated via the MHHS data cleanse. And for MHHS MPANs, there'll be a flag to show whether there's a customer direct data service in place or a customer direct meter operator in place. A number of icons will be removed.
Sorry, Jonny, we've got a few questions coming through.
Okay, cool. I'll stop there for some questions.
So we've got the first one, which is, how different is the MPAN to the item that it replaces it in EES?
Let me see the actual question. So how different is the MPAN that replaces it in EES? So the MPAN isn't changing. So the MPAN core isn't changing. The top line has changed slightly, and we'll go into it in a minute. But basically, the MTC is no longer a thing. So the MTC has been replaced by the SSC. The line loss factor will be replaced by the GEOS tariff ID. They're the same sort of thing. I mean, it's the same, but it's the same. It'll look the same. But so for MHHS, you'd use the GEOS tariff ID, but for legacy, you'd use the LLF. But they're the only changes. And again, we'll come into that in a minute.
Question from Andy Bailey.
So Andy's asking about the MPAN designation replaced by the DPI. So Yes, so the designation will no longer be used, and the DPI will be populated for all MPANs. So the designation is currently there and is used for most things instead of the DPI, because the DPI isn't populated for everything. Through MHHS data cleanse, the DPI will be populated for all MPANs, meaning the designation isn't required anymore, so the designation will not be shown anymore. And Keith's question around different icons for migrated, non-migrated, reverse migrated. Yes, there are 3 different icons. I think it's a play icon for migrated. I think it's a stop for non-migrated, and a reverse icon for reverse migrated. So you'll be able to see that when in the portal. I don't think we've got any examples of reverse migrated currently to show, but they will show different icons as you go into it when we go live. Thank you for the questions. So the next slide I had was around search results. So when you're doing a search in the system, and there's currently a number of filters, because the MPAN designation is no longer a thing within EES, the MPAN designation filter will no longer be there. What you will see is a domestic premise indicator filter. So be able to filter on the domestic premise indicator true or false. You won't be able to filter on the MPAN designation as it currently is. And then there is some impact to the supply registration history. Because the ERDS currently provides historic information to EES, this is populated in the system. Unfortunately, this historic information isn't being passed to EES for communication over the DIP. This means that detailed information and in-flight registrations, i.e. if it's been objected to, if it's been withdrawn, isn't available from CSS. So instead, what we get from CSS is an update of registration cancelled, which means in EES that we won't be able to show the objection status, objection entered, objection removed, or any registration notes in the supply registration history. Instead, the supplier history in EES will be updated to show the generic cancellation status only. So you'll be able to see if registration has been attempted and cancelled, but you won't be able to see any more of the reason for that cancellation, as that information is no longer received by EES. And then moving on to the annual consumption. So how you'll see the annual consumption within EES is what we're going to do is we're going to hold each month's annual consumption for a period of 12 months in a table. So you'll be able to see the most recent annual consumption and how that's changed over the last 12 months alongside the date it was set and the quality indicator. The API will only show the most recent value, but if you want to see the history, you can see that on the EES portal. And then for customer appointed agents, so we talked about this new customer appointed agent flag. So customer direct contract indicators can be set by the currently appointed agent via DIP flows into MPRS. Once appointed, the indicator will not be removed unless ended by the setting agent or the effective to date is reached. I think it's key for this to know is that the customer direct contract information is treated as a totally separate, distinct data right into the appointed agents. So EES will display the MPIN and DIP ID of the agent holding a direct contract in both the portal and API. What you might see is that the data service and the metering service can be set different to who set the direct contract. So if a direct contract set and the supplier appoints a different agent, they might be misaligned. That is allowed within the system, and you may see that, but that direct contract flag won't be ended until either the date that the effective to date's reached or the agent that set it removes it. So if the new agent has a contract and the old agent hasn't removed the flag or that effective to date hasn't been reached, they won't be able to set their flag until the other flag's been removed. Okay, so alerts. So the following alerts will no longer be presented for any MPAN. So we currently have an alert when the domestic premise indicator is set to true, and that conflicts with the MPAN designation. As there's no MPAN designation, that alert can't be set. And then also if the meter indicator is set to true and that conflicts with the MPAN designation, again, that alert won't be triggered. And then just moving on to some consequential changes into the EES. So as we've said in the questions already, the S number held in EES will be updated in line with Rec Change R83, which means that the new S number will be the PC, the SSC and the LLF Geotariff ID. That changes for all MPANs, not just MHHS migrated MPANs, and will be effective from MHHS go live at M8/M10, which is currently planned for 22nd of September. And also the new metering point request form will be updated to add remove the following items. So the expected profile class and the expected measurement class will be removed and will be replaced by the expected measurement class. So the expected it's not measurement class, that's just been removed. It'll be the expected connection type and the expected market segment will be added. So we'll get that change in the slide before we send them out, but the expected connection type and expected market segment will be added to the new metering point request. The API then, so moving on to the API. So when we were updating the API, there's a number of design principles that we used, which you'll see when you look at it. So the new data items will be added to the end of each individual payload. The same file will be provided independent of a party's MHHS qualification status. So this means, and the means of connecting to the API will remain unchanged. So the same means of connecting and the same URL will be there. And items not populated for an MPAN will be provided as null values. So this means that all new data items present in the EES portal will also be shown in the API. These will be returned in queries for all MPANs and will be not populated for non-migrated MPANs. So the new MHHS items will be added into the API return for MHHS MPANs. If it's MHHS, legacy items will be returned as null. If it's legacy, the MHHS only items will be returned as null. So the items removed from MHHS will continue to be returned, but will not be populated for MHHS MPANs. So that means that all parties, irrespective of their MHHS qualification status or their involvement in MHHS, will receive an updated API return from M8 to 22nd September. The API will continue to show the most recent data items only, with the exception of MPAN relationships and associations, where a history is currently returned and will continue to be returned. We've provided a full test version of the MHHS API to parties going for MHHS SIT, and we've also provided access to a UIT environment for all EES users. We can access that environment by request. The UIT environment is populated with a legacy data cut and a small number of MHHS dummy MPANs to allow parties to view the MHHS changes. That environment hasn't really been provided to support end-to-end pit testing. It's there to show you what the new API return would look like. A final red line version, which is 1.1 of the MHHS API interface spec, is available as part of the wider R241 changes on the REC portal, and there's a link in the slides there to go and access that. Any party wanting to access test version of the API can contact CNC direct at support@cnc.uk.com, and they will provide access to the API to any EES user, to the API test version to any EES user. And just to be absolutely explicit once again, that changes to the API will impact all users of the API, independent of their MHHS status or involvement. So if you use the API, you will see changes from September. Looking at EES reporting, so all reports provided with the code manager are being reviewed by the code manager. MHHS MPANs, redundant items will be removed from the reporting and new items will be added. CNC group are also contacting all parties directly to discuss required amendments to bespoke reports through their SUD service, and they should be in contact with people to discuss how that will look going forward. So the last slide before we do the exciting bit of showing what the new portal will look like is just talking about the cutover. So the EES system, new EES system will be implemented over the weekend of the 20th and 21st of September. Over that weekend, the database will be frozen and parties will only be able to access the service in a read-only mode on both the Saturday and Sunday, which is the 20th and 21st September. This will mean that any data received into the service will not update the database. Given that MPAS updates are received on weekends, this will only apply to updates received from CSS. Parties will continue to be able to view the data held in both the portal and the API as normal, but be aware that data will be frozen from the Friday. Any actions requiring writing to the database will not be available. So this includes using S-step messages, the new metering point request tool, and the cross-metering tool. So anything you need to actually write into the database, you won't be able to do. And that is mainly around the SDS stuff. Once live on the 22nd of September, parties will see minor changes to the portal. The main difference being the amended supply number and some of the other little tweaks we talked about, MPAN designation, etc. won't be there. They'll all go live from September. The API will also be updated to include MHHS specific data items. These will be returned as null values until the metering point is migrated. So you won't see any of these items actually populated until migration starts in October. And just a final note that the updated EES user guides can be found on the MHHS section of the RECCo portal. There's a link here, but they are on the RECCo portal to review. Laura, do we have any questions?
We do. We've got quite a few in the chat. But just to clarify that the slides will be shared as will the recording.
Yes.
If we don't answer any questions today, we'll send a written response for them out as well.
Awesome. Okay, so rather than getting you to read them out, Laura, I can see them. So I think the last question we had was, how did we get down to? I think that's the question we had was from Keith around the migrating and migrating reverse migrated was the last one I answered, I think. So we've just taken in line from there. So hi, with legacy items from Ben, whether all legacy items be visible for migrated MPANs but frozen or will not be visible at all. This depends on the legacy item. So the profile class and the SSC will continue to be shown within MHHS, so they will be available if set. So the profile class and the SSC are mandatory for traditional metering, but not mandatory for advanced and smart meters. So if a supplier after migration removes them, then they won't be available. They'll be shown as blanks. The items such as the measurement class, the MTC, are not part of the MHHS design, so they won't be shown in EES going forward after that MPAN's been migrated. If reverse migrated, then obviously they will be reset by the supplier or defaulted by MPAS to the previous values. And any follow-ups, any of these, I think if you put your hand up and maybe Laura can unmute, or we can pick them up after if anyone wants to contact direct. So the next one from John, updated values in EES are all fields not mentioned in the new or depreciated values made in use. We know the alteration changes. Yes. So if it's not mentioned, it's going to be existing, and the trading status has had no changes to it, for example. So yeah, I think when we see the actual portal in a minute, you'll be able to see the item still there. Question from Chris Berry: with the various factory from dates, AFD be individually updated from the actual date of the change? You may be aware that certain fitters are getting quickly at the set supply change over date, e.g. So the changes to the so there's no change to the effective from date being set and the change of supplier. That's not part of the MHHS design. So on a change of supply, the date, the items that currently are aligned to the change of supply date will also move. I think these are all items that are set by the supplier. So again, they will move across. I'm aware of some questions around this that we've had, but the MHHS design doesn't change anything in that regards, if that helps. Yes, Manny, we're sending the presentation out. Question from Charlotte. Yeah, we'll send the recording out as well. I think it's going to be on YouTube. But yeah, and again, if your team's got any questions after viewing the session, please reach out. Hi, Paul. This seeking to be available in ECCOs, even though it's not used for certain purposes. Yeah, so the SSE will continue to be shown if set, and will be available in both the user interface and the API. As I say, it's not been removed. What it is is only optional now for smart and advanced metering. So if it's once an MPAN migrates, it'll maintain the SSE that's already set. If a supplier then removes it for advanced and smart metering, then it will be blank for migrated MPANs. Hi Justin, how to filter photo metered supplies only for MHHS. I think that might be something we might have to take away if that filter has been taken out because of the MPAN designation. There should be something there, but we might have to look at that and put in a fix to do that if that's not there, but I'll take that away. Hayley, when will the new EES API and portal be available? Okay, yes, so the new EES and API portal will be available from the Monday, the 22nd of September. There's no URL information required, so you should be able to use the existing URL to access both. And yes, I think any communication that goes out around the EES will be sent to your MAU, the EES MAU, rather than the MHHS principal contact. It's not, we don't have the MHHS principal contact on record. But to be clear, there's no changes to the URL, so it should be okay. Justin, because we've last 12 months taken a what's on my run. So this is provided monthly. So what's happening is the Alexon systems are providing an annual consumption for every MPAN every month based on the consumption they've received during that month. So what they will do is look at a time in the month and look at the last 12 months consumption. It's not taking that particular settlement run, it's just taken at the most recent day for consumption for that day, and they'll send it out. There is a MHHS documents that covers the calculations, etc., that Alexon are doing to provide the annual consumption, which is currently held on the MHHS website and will be part of the BSE after M10. So it might be worthwhile having a look at that. If you can't find it, let me know and I'll dig it out for you. Again, Justin, who sets the direct appointment flag agent or supplier? It's the currently appointed agent that would set that flag. Will historic AC values be superseded if amended and replaced, or will you only ever see the latest shared value? So yes, so it's a kind of a rolling 12 months, Andy. So you'll see the last 12 months of values, but obviously as they drop off as we go through time, you don't only see the most recent 12 months, and then only the most recent value set will be available within the API. The actual annual consumption that is on that MPAN will be the most recent value, so that is a value to use. But if you want to see historic, you can obviously look at that table and see the historic information. Hi John, on the supplier agent and direct agent values, will there be any reporting? So I'm assuming you mean if the agent and the direct appointed agent are different. It's not something that we're currently looking at reporting off. It's not being picked up as part of our performance assurance at the moment. That's not to say that it might be looking at in the future. But again, if that's something you would like, it's maybe something we can talk about for future exchange to try and get them reporting together. Yes, Richard, the customer direct indicator is restricted on certain participants. I believe it's the current supplier and the gaining supplier. I'll have to double check in the DAM, but it's not available to all. And also to note, the effective to date is not available. It's not available to anybody. It's effective to them, and that will drive when the icon's taken away, but that's not available to any party to see in the system. Charles, is all information visible to all participants if not appointed at the time of viewing? Yes, so it depends on the item, but the items that are currently available to suppliers to view before they do a cause will continue to be available, and most of the items I think nearly all the items will be available for incoming suppliers to see, and before they do a change of supply, so you'll be able to check the status of a migration, etc., before you do that. Ben, if legacy data is no longer shown, how suppliers able to confirm what SSC and AMR meter has not to do with reverse migration? So again, for the SSC, the MHHS design is that it's not mandatory for advanced metering. We are intending to look at an issue around whether that when you should populate the SSC in an AMR meter, and potentially a smart meter, and if that is something that needs to change. So we are going to look at that through rec change in the future, and take party views on it. But the existing MHHS design is that the SSC is not mandatory for advanced or smart. So if it's been removed after migration, then we won't be able to see it, unfortunately. Yes, sorry, Paul. The EES user guides pushing the RECCo portal have been updated to reflect these changes. They're made available. There's a link in the slides, but I'll try and put that in the chat as well after the call. I think that's the end of the questions, unless there's any more come up that I haven't seen after a refresh. Oh no, there is some more.
We've got a couple more.
Yeah, okay, cool. We've got the time. What we'll do, Laura, if you can tell me when it gets a quarter past, we'll go and we'll make sure we do the actual show of the portal. It shouldn't take too long. Then we can take any more questions after that. So Steve Phillips, in regard to updates not making their way through the system during the cutoff dates, will this create a backlog of it? It shouldn't. No, I mean, we are prepared to do any updates on the Sunday to make sure that everything's come through. So the Monday, all the data that's been received over the weekend will be available within the new version of EES. As I say, the MPAS doesn't provide any updates during the weekend, so it should just be the CSS flows. So hopefully that's not too many, but we are expecting to update them for that, and that is part of the cutover plan. I think we'll make the slides available as soon as possible, Laura. Obviously, there's that one amendment we need to make because it's showing incorrect information. But once we've made that, we can get them out this afternoon, I would hope. Matt. Yeah, okay. We've had this question on the sandbox a few times. Unfortunately, because the sandbox isn't part of the MHHS end-to-end testing environment, we haven't got any data to populate. So the data that we've had to put in, we've had to create individual IF flows to load, which has been quite a lengthy process. So the MPANs we've used are fake MPANs. They're not assigned to anything, which means, as you say, the checksum probably doesn't work. The idea for the test version of the API was to show what the changes would look like from a visual point of view. We acknowledge the MPANs might not load in people's systems, and we apologise for that. But at this point, we're not able to update the MPANs. I will point out that post M10 in September, the normal test environment for the API will be updated for MHHS, so you'll be able to use that for any testing, and all the MPANs in there will be as per the live environment. If you've got any technical issues during integration with the EES API, I would contact CNC Group at the normal CNC help desk for EES. Again, we can send that out with the slides, etc. If that's needed. Hi Neil, hope you're well. Replace our measurement class code. So the measurement class is being replaced by the market segment. So sort of. So the measurement class isn't required anymore. What we have instead is the market segment, which indicates whether an MPAN is advanced, smart, or unmetered. The measurement class, which tells you if something's half hourly, non-half hourly, isn't really needed, since everything will be half hourly in the new world. You plan to make a historic view of values available. At the moment, John, that historic views of values aren't part of the design, so it's not something that EES will be showing. Again, if it's something that is required, please raise it through a rec issue, etc., and we can have a look. Yeah, thanks, Matt. We'll tell the month that's an update the annual consumption. It's a rolling thing through the month, so basically, rather than sending 30 million floors out at the end of the month for every MPAN, they're bunching them up and doing each a day. So it will be rolling through the month. So the system will allocate a number of MPANs to do on a certain day, and that will then go through. So it's not going to be a specific time in the month, but there will be a month between each MPANs update, and the effective from date will be available in the system as well. How we test data for EES generated and normalized. So the test data we were using is basically totally made up. When you see the when we go into the portal in a minute, you'll see that. So again, that's one of the reasons why checksums, etc., aren't working, because the data isn't real. The annual consumption is available to a number of parties. I think it's available to TPIs, price comparison sites, etc. If that's where the nature of the question is going, it's definitely available to data services, etc. So again, we've just released an updated version of the data access matrix, which shows all this information. Again, I'll add it to the list of links to send out with some of the pack. But yeah, it is available to more than just a supplier. That's a true statement. And this question, Naveen. So yes, I think yeah, if it's not available, then you won't be able to view it when we're doing reverse migration. I think the idea in the migration design is that the supplier would set the MTC and the MC based on the metering that they inherit. The line loss factor is likely through migration to be the same as the GEOS tariff ID. But yeah, the other items suppliers would need to decide. I mean, just because it was a measurement class, you know, the measurement class, you'll know the type of metering, and you will also know the connection type, whether it's AT or whole current. So yeah, that can be worked out. And things like the MTC, again, it's a supplier can set that as they need. And then Kane, are the meters required in display to match the MHHS configuration in line with the way the account we build, or less historical metering setups to the MHHS configuration? So when you say that, again, maybe it's a question we can take offline, Kane. Meters required in display. If you mean the SS, the sort of the S number to match the MHHS configuration line with the account we build, it's the SSA, etc., needs to match the metering, and that's the physical side. How the counts build is a supplier choice using MHHS data. So it's probably the NHH configuration that you were looking at. The MHHS, one of the reasons why the SSA is not required for advanced and smart is that the billing is in a supplier's gift, and it's not necessarily down to how the meter's set up. And Harriet, thank you for the user guides and that clarification. That helps.
I think that's the end of the questions now.
Okay, for now, I'll use the I'll use the gap to share the. I'll see if this works. Let me know if you can see EES, Laura.
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, great, thank you. Okay, so this is we've done a search on an MPAN. It's one of the made up MPANs that are currently in the UIT environment, and this is the portal version of the UIT environment. As you can see, when you do a search, you get a very similar screen to what you'd normally expect, but you can see that the fast forward indicator is there to show that the MPAN has been migrated, which should be a new thing. Clicking into the MPAN, obviously I've been timed out with the, I've looked at it before, so I'll do the search again. Okay, so clicking into the MPAN, so what you'll see is the top line now shows the profile class, and then instead of the MTC, it shows the 4-digit SSC with the line loss factor GEOS tariff ID looking very similar, and also the bottom line looking the same. Into the MPAN screen, normal information as you would expect. If you look at the distributor ID, you can see the DIP ID will come up as a, I think the technical term is a tooltip when you hover over it. And then also you now have the market segment, which is in this case S for smart traditional, and the connection type, which is W for whole current. In the icons here, you can say that it's a migrated MPAN, and the other icons are as you would expect currently. Moving into this bit, the migrated flag is technically there with the MHHS indicator, and then you can see the appointments. Again, if you hover over any of these market participant IDs, you will see the DIP ID on the tooltip. And this, where it's populated, will be where the customer direct contract is shown. And when you go into the settlement parameters, the GEOS tariff IDs replace the LLF, and the MTC is no longer there. And then looking at the smart communications, again, as you'd normally expect, I believe the smart type was here as well, but that's no longer there. Look at the meter details. This now will be as per the IFO5 and IFO6 messages that you will receive, and you'll be able to see the meter manufacturer when it's populated, and also the meter location. If you hover over the meter location, you'll be able to see again in a tooltip what the actual letter stands for. In this case, and there's so many MPANs, the location is F not known. There's a lot of the same MSN because we use the same meter serial number for all of the fake MPANs in the system. Look at this meter history, again, very, very, very similar. And MPAN relationships, again, shows the primary MPAN and in this case, a secondary MPAN. You can click a button here to jump to the secondary MPAN. The associations, there is no import-export association here, but this is where that would be. And then down at the bottom, you've got the annual consumption. This is a newly migrated MPAN when we did it. So this has only had one annual consumption provided. It's 100% estimated data, and there's the annual consumption that's been there, provided there. And then you've also got a list of the data service histories. Are there any questions, Laura, on this? No, I've got it there. Let's have a look.
Yeah, we've got 3. The first one is, will the HH data be downloadable?
Not direct from the system at this moment in time, no, but that's maybe something we can look at for the future. I believe suppliers will, I can't remember, I'll double check. I think the suppliers may receive the actual file with it on as well, but it's also shown there. So yeah, you might be able to use the actual file you received to look at that. But again, it's something we can look at. Chris, the SSC could either be 3 or 4 characters. Is that true? I believe the SSC can have a leading 0, which will make it 3 characters, but it should be presented as 4 characters in the top line. And then again, Chris. Okay, so regarding primary and secondary EMS MPANs, I think what you're talking about is the Alexon mod that is migrating the non-half-hourly MPANs into half-hourly MPANs, which would then potentially get rid of some of the secondary EMS MPANs. If that happened, or if any other reason why things were logically disconnected, they would follow through the same process as any other logical disconnection. So you would see the MPANs being logically disconnected, and then they would, if they were then de-linked or unrelated, then that will come off the relationship status. But EES isn't doing anything specific for these MPANs. It would just take the flows in as it normally does and update from what it's provided from. For legacy, from MPRS and going forward, what it receives in the DIP updates. Yeah, I mean, I think if you search for logically disconnected MPANs, you search for any disconnected MPAN, I don't think it comes up. with much. So again, it might be something to take away and look at any improvements required on this process. And then Vanessa, any screenshots provided highlighting location, the amended data locations in the training pack slides. There is screenshots within the updated user guides showing a lot of this information. So if you look in there, hopefully that gives you information you need. And then Paul Scrafton, long time no see, Paul. Can we see data aggregator on the screen or on the API? Yeah, so the data aggregator for MHHS MPANs is no longer a thing, so you won't have a DA on any MHHS MPANs, so you won't be able to see that. If it's a legacy MPAN, you'll still see the DA in the portal and in the API. And then Susanna, we're not showing the customer direct contract end date. That's been deemed as confidential business information, so we're just showing the agents appointed. We are holding the end date in the back end of the system, and that will be used to end the appointment when it's reached. And then on the Duos RFID, the Duos, I think there was a spacing thing about putting the Duos RFID. It is a Duos RFID, but it's being badged as Duos in the new system, so that just because the full thing wouldn't have fitted in at the time. Will unmetered MHHS consumption data be visible to DNOs and UMSOs? I will need to check, but I believe so, Nicola. So that's something that will be in the DAM, but I can take that away. As I say, I think we're going to record all these questions and send them out as with formal answers anyway. So when we do that, we'll provide some of that information in there. And then Paul asks you, will the supply history be lost, or is this because it's in a test environment? It's just because it's a test environment, the supply history is not being lost. There's no change to that history. It's just because there was no supply history for this MPAN, as it was just newly created. As SSC is not mandatory for advanced smart meters, what causes removing and migrated MPAN? So Ben, what will happen is, my understanding is it'll be migrated as it is. So if you do migration, the SSC will come across. It would then be a supplier action to remove that if they so wished. So a supplier would need to actively remove the SSC or even the profile class to take it out. Registration status at the bottom, like we have in ECCOs currently, there'll be no change to registration status, so it should show the registration status where it currently does. There may be something in the test environment that's not there, but the RMP status is there as is the trading status, so it should show you everything you currently get around registration. Yes, Claire. So yeah, so we can no longer see objections, registrations withdrawn, cancelled. Yes, so you can see what you will see if I'm assuming I'm still sharing, but when we look at the when you look at the registration history, which is supply history, you'll see a from and a to, and in this there will be a if that has been cancelled, it will show as it being cancelled. What it won't show as in the reason why it was cancelled, it won't show if rejected to or withdrawn. Have we lost the MSM MOP history? I don't believe so, John. It's something that I thought this morning when I looked at the at this environment. I'm going to double check that for you. So if you leave that with me in the questions, and we'll double check. Mark, what will be the possible values of the MHHS indicator? These are the same in the UI and API. Yeah, they will be the same. And so what the API will show are the values TF and U. So T will be migration, F will be not migrated, and U. So TF and R and R will be reverse migrated. They'll be expanded within the portal, but the API will bring back them three values. Yes, Thomas, that is correct. So the old profile class migrated over and all new players once the supply removes or changed it. That is correct, yeah. And Zoe, you mentioned the CDC flag for metering agents will send the floor to end this with the agent where the customer doesn't sign a new agreement. Yeah, so if the CDC flag is not the agent appointment. So if the CDC flag ends, the agent appointment doesn't end with it. The agent appointment's still there until it's removed by the appointment of a new agent. So I would assume in that instance that the MOA would have informed the customer and or the supplier that their contract was coming to an end, and the supplier would need to make sure that a contracted agent was put in place. But the actual agent appointment itself wouldn't end just because the direct contract flag had been removed. And Shazia, yeah, again, I think so the data within the system is as I said, totally made up. We have had to update it with manual IF flows. It's a very manual process, so it's only been provided to help with literally a view of the system, so that you can see what it looks like. It's not really there for end-to-end testing, so we're not at this moment in time looking at amending any information within the system. But we will keep an eye on this sort of thing. And as I say, the actual the current test version of the API, the live version of the test version will be updated to MHHS at M8, M10, so you'll be able to see all the MPANs in there. Right, where were we? Yeah, Rashid, there's no change to export flag. So I've got an export example, which we can show in a second if that helps. But yeah, the export flag will remain. Yes, there is an effective from date. ML, sorry if I've pronounced your name wrong, but there is an effective from date against the migration flag, so you'll be able to see that. Okay, what I was going to do quickly, if there isn't any more questions as yet, if I just show an advanced MPAN quickly, just to show some of the potential differences. So what you've got in here, again, very similar information. The market segment in this case is A for advanced, and the connection type is H into HV current transformer. What you can see is that that's an export MPAN with export indicator there. The MHHS indicator is migrated, and the date that migrated is the 13th of September. I think that answers a question that came up earlier. In this instance, because it's an advanced MPAN, the profile class and the SSC have not been set. As you can see, they're provided as zeros in the top line at the top. Meter in this instance is H. It's still got an unknown location. And then it's also got, you can see the import and export association, so you can see which it's associated to. And then if you click on here, you can then see both the MPANs in that association and click on the one that you want to. And this is still the export MPAN. So that's that. And then what other thing I was going to quickly show is the is if you look at this particular MPAN, this has a customer direct contract for the data service and a customer direct contract for the metering service. So be able to see them. In this instance, it's an EHV MPAN, so you can see the EHV indicator and a market segment A for advanced. And what you can see here is that the customer direct contract has been populated with the MPID of the particular agent that has been set it to direct contracted holder, and you can see the DIP ID for that agent as well. Okay, we've got a few minutes, so I'll return to see if there's any further questions. I'm not seeing any, so last chance if anybody wants to ask anything. But what we'll do is we'll get all the questions formally answered and release them to we'll actually when we put them on the portal on the website, Laura, along with the recording, etc. Yeah. I think we can also put any frequent links or required links on there as well to some of the documentation that people have asked for. If there's no more questions, I think
we haven't got any more.
No, okay. So thank you so much for your time, everybody, and thank you so much for the questions. They've been really helpful. I think we might have one. It's slide number now. Oh, got two. Okay, I'll go for James first. James at Redfish. Will the transformation create opportunity to revisit change proposal R9, which is the best step in EES user maintenance API? It's not in scope currently, but I do believe there are some improvements to the STEP underway at the moment. But yeah, that's not in scope for MHHS. And Jane, is a supply number now 22 digits? I believe that it's increased by 1 because the SSE is 1 more digit than the MCC. So if that makes it 22, then yes, it is. When we expect the YouTube post slideshow email, I'll let Laura.
We'll send that out within the next week.
Laura. And then is the DIP ID for agents per MPID, or will there be a different DIP ID if it's a customer contract? It's aligned to the MPID. So there's no DIP ID for different reasons why the MPID is being used. So you will see the same MPID, the same DIP ID put against the MPIDs if they're the same as the actual agents. If they're different MPID, you'll see different DIP IDs. And thank you, Nija. That helps. Did I see some hands up, or was that other
There's
items?
no hands raised at the moment. I think they were trying to clap you, so well done.
Thank you. I'll take that. Okay. As I say, if anyone's got any questions, please either email the RECCo service desk, or there is a MHHS at RECCo inbox, which again I'll put in the chat in this meeting. But yeah, if anyone's got any questions, please ask. And yeah, hopefully all full speed ahead to September now. So and then we can see it all in action. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.